Hi there! Today's video is about something that's maybe not all that exciting, but the results you get out of it sure are, and that is Google Search Console. And it used to be called Google Webmaster Tools. And if you don't know what it is, today's video, I'm going to explain to you how it works, why you really need it, and then I'm going to walk you through step by step exactly how to set it up properly so that it gives you the results you want. So stay tuned. So let's start with why you should be using Google Search Console. And the most important reason is that it basically tells Google what to do with all of the pages on your website, making sure that Google can see everything that you want it to see and that it can't see the things that you don't want it to see. So you can actually tell it, go look at this page, don't look at that. You can also tell Google, hey, look, there's new content on my website, come take a look at it and get it into the search results right away. It can also notify you if there's anything wrong with your site. So if there are things happening like spam or malware on your site, if you've been hacked, you'll get a notification about that, as well as some information on what you can do to resolve it. If you're doing things that you shouldn't be doing, like what they call black hat SEO and stuff like that, you'll get a warning in Search Console and it'll tell you, hey, quit doing that. Here's how you can resolve this, please. Otherwise, we won't show your website anymore. So all of those notifications show up in Google Search Console. Beyond that, it also gives you a ton of information that you won't find in Google Analytics. So it pulls information from Search Console, passes it over to Analytics, and you can see things like which search terms are causing your site to show up in the search results, and which queries are bringing in the most traffic, into which pages is the traffic going. That's stuff you can't see in Analytics without having Search Console enabled. Now, I have a video on a lot of things that you can do with Search Console. So if you look in the description below, you'll see a link to that. So I encourage you to go and take a look at that video after you have Search Console set up. The other question that always comes up is who should be using Search Console? And the answer is everybody. If you have a website, there is no debate. You need to be using Search Console. So how do you set it up? Well, first things first, you go to Google, right? And what you're going to do is sign into Google with your Google account. If you don't have one, you're going to need to set one up before you can do any of this. Ideally, the account that you use for Search Console, as well as for any of the other Google things like Analytics and AdWords, YouTube, you're going to use a business email address. So one that you have set up for your business. Now you don't have to, but I like to keep the two things separate so that you're not dealing with your personal stuff and your business stuff all mixed up. So assuming you have a Google account, you're going to go right here and you're going to go to Google, you're going to log in. And I'm logging in as one of my accounts, one of my business accounts. And then you want to go to Search Console. The easiest way to do it is just type it in, Search Console. And it's going to show up here. Click on it and it will take you to Search Console. When you're new to Search Console, this is what's going to come up. And this is where you are going to set up your website as a property in Search Console. It's really easy to do. You simply go here. You have an option, website or app. We're talking about websites. So here you're going to put in the URL for your website. And this is where one of the tricks comes in that's really important. You are going to do this 4 times. You're not just going to add your website once. So I'm assuming that you have a website that's on HTTPS. That's the secure version of your website. You've got an SSL certificate for it. These days, you must be on HTTPS. Otherwise, people are going to get a warning in the browser. So make sure you've got it set up that way. If you don't, I'll have another video for you on how to set up HTTPS and why that's important. So I'm going to type in the name of a website that I own. Now, you usually have 2 possible versions of your website, www and non-www. So I'm going to set it up both ways. So, add a property. When you do that, it's going to ask you to verify that you own the website. And there are various ways you can do it. It tells you here in this case that the recommended method is to go through your domain name provider. So that's the company where you registered the name, the domain, the URL for your website. The next step is to verify that website. You have to verify that you actually own it. And Search Console recommends, in this case, that you do it by going to the domain name provider. That's the company where you registered the name, the domain of your website. So in the case of this website, it's GoDaddy, and all you have to do is click verify and follow the prompts. In order to do this, you need to have, as you'll see, the password and the user ID for your domain registrar. Okay, so in this case for GoDaddy. And you would just sign in. It automatically takes care of adding a text record to your DNS, which is a fancy way of saying it's just putting a little piece of information out there and saying, yep, we recognize it. It's okay, you own this website. If you can't do that, if you don't know where your domain's registered, if you don't have that information, maybe your webmaster does or somebody else, but if you don't, there are other ways you can also verify your website. And you can go through any of these options. If you already have a Google Analytics account that's set up with the same email address, then this is the easiest way to do it. Just click on Use Google Analytics and verify that way. Another way to do it is to upload a file to your website. Now, for this, obviously, you need to have access to the back end of your website, either through FTP or some sort of file manager. A lot of people don't necessarily have that or know how. If you don't, talk to your webmaster about it. You can also add an HTML tag to your website. So this is something you can do if you have, and especially if you're using a WordPress website. In that case, if you are using either the Jetpack plugin or the Yoast SEO plugin, you can copy this tag and put it into that plugin. So that's a really nice, simple way to do it where you don't actually have to, link to your domain registrar or anything like that. And if you're using Google Tag Manager, which I'm not going to get into, but if you are using it, you can use this as well to do that. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to go with the recommended method here and I'm going to verify it through GoDaddy. As you can see, it has now been verified. If you check your email, you'll see that you're getting an email from Google Search Console telling you that you are the new owner of this site. So that's another way to check. That email is going to have some helpful information for you. So take a look at that and you can follow the steps that it outlines in that email. Now, we've set up one version of the site. I click here on Search Console and I can add a property and add the other versions of the site. I'm going to add the www version of the site and I'm going to go through the same process with that to verify it. And then I'm also going to add the HTTP version without the www and the HTTP version with the www. In other words, I'm setting up 4 different versions of my website in Search Console, even though I'm only going to use one of those versions. And here's why. When you've finished adding and verifying all 4 versions of your website, you'll see them listed in your Search Console. And at this point, you're going to have to choose which of those versions is the one that you want to work with, because you're only going to use one of them. So when you normally visit your website, what is the URL that it's on? So the site I'm demoing today is Gardening Products Review, and you can see here the version that this website is on is the non-www version. So that is the version that I'm going to choose. Take a look at your website and see which one yours is on. And again, if you are not on HTTPS, I suggest that you move your site to that before you go through all of this, because otherwise you're going to have to set this all up again with the HTTPS versions. So This is the version I'm going to be using. I'm going to go into Search Console here and I'm going to pick that version. And it opens up in the dashboard. Now, the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and tell Google, this is the version I want to work with. So I know I've put 4 in there, but this is the important one. And to do that, I'm going to go up here under Settings and I'm going to choose Site Settings. And here's where you can tell it the preferred domain. And by default, it's set at don't set a preferred domain. You do want to set one. And you're going to pick the one that your website is actually on. So in my case, it's the non-WW version. The reason I wanted you to set up all 4 versions of your site is that if you don't have both the WWW and the non-W's version verified, you can't do this. You can't actually select your preferred domain. And it's important that you do it. So go ahead and we'll save that. That is the verified domain. You'll also want to take a look at some of these other settings, Search Console preferences. That basically is, do you want to get emails from us or not? And yes, you do, because if there are any problems, such as your site's getting hacked or anything, you want to get those email notifications. Change of address, that has to do with the website address, not your physical address. So only unless you move your website, you don't need to deal with this. Google Analytics property. So if you have a Google Analytics property, this is where you can link to it. And you do want to do that. You want to make sure that Search Console and Analytics are linked together. If you don't yet have an Analytics property, don't worry about it, because when you do set that up, you'll be able to link it back to Search Console. Users and property owners shows you who has access to Search Console and what permissions do they have. So what can they access on the Search Console? And you can change that and you can add more people and you can remove people. Verification details just shows you what you did. You verified your site. An associate shows you who has access to some of the other Google properties like YouTube, for example. But of all of these, the most important one is that site settings where you're choosing what is the preferred domain. When you've just set up a new Search Console account, you won't see any data. There'll be nothing here, all right, because it hasn't visited, it hasn't crawled or indexed your site. It hasn't come yet to your website and said, hey, look at all this content, I'm going to start showing it, right? It doesn't even know it exists. So don't be surprised if this all says no data, no data, no data. You click on anything here, search traffic, Google index, nothing, it's not showing you anything, okay? It takes a while for it to index your site, which means it comes to your site, takes a look at what's on it, and then decides how to show it, okay? But there are a few things that you can do to help it along so that it comes and visits your site more quickly and puts that stuff in the search results. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to add a sitemap. And this is what tells Google, here's what's on my website, page by page. So how do you add a sitemap? Okay, first things first, make sure you actually have a sitemap on your website. If you're using WordPress, which is what I recommend and use for all of my clients, it's pretty simple. You want to install the Yoast SEO plugin on your site. If you're not using WordPress, there are other ways to do it that would be specific to that platform. But basically, this is a file that has an XML extension. So that's what you would be looking for. And in Yoast SEO, so this is the back end, again, of the Gardening Products Review website. I'm going to go to General and then Features. And if you look down here, you'll see it says Sitemaps, XML Sitemaps. Now make sure that setting is on. And then you're going to click on that little question mark there, and it'll see the XML sitemap. Now, different sites show sitemaps a little bit differently. So depending on how you have it set up, you might see several different sitemaps here, or you might just see one. You might just see one that says sitemap.xml or one that says index-sitemap.xml, and that's fine. I happen to have 3 different ones here, and I am going to put each of those ones into Search Console. The part that's important here, you'll notice it's got my whole URL and then /post-sitemap.xml. That's the part you want to copy and put into Search Console. So here's where you add it to Search Console. You go to Crawl, Sitemaps. And it gives you right here this button. You can add a sitemap. You can add multiple sitemaps, but you have to add them one at a time. So here it is, and it gives you the chance to put in that little piece that you just copied. In my case, that's post-sitemap.xml, and you would hit Submit. And then refresh the page, and you can see that it has been submitted. Now, in this case, I've already gone ahead and done that. I've submitted 3 different sitemaps for my site, and you can see when it was processed, how many pages and images were submitted, and how many were actually indexed. And index simply means Google has seen it and put it into its search results so that it can be found when people are searching for it. It's important to note that you're only going to do this, you're only going to add the sitemap for the one preferred domain that you're working with. So although you've set up 4 versions of your site in Search Console, you're only going to add the sitemap to this one. And that's all there is to setting up Google Search Console. I hope you found this video was helpful. If you have any questions at all, please just leave them in the comments down below, and I will do my best to answer each and every one of them. And if you like this video, please hit that like button, tell your friends about it, and subscribe to this channel because there's going to be plenty more videos coming. And if there's anything you want me to do a video on, please let me know and I'll create one just for you guys. So long for now.